ॐ जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः. It's a great pleasure and privilege to participate in this online session, and I shall be speaking on the topic Durga Puja, the significance of Durga Puja and the Ramakrishna movement and the Ramakrishna movement. So, worship of the Divine Mother, as we all know, is one of the oldest forms of worship known to humanity. It comes very naturally to human beings. Sri Ramakrishna used to often say, to look upon God as mother is the purest and the highest form of sadhana. Why did he say that? Because mother's love is the most unselfish and unconditional form of human love. For a child, mother is all sufficient. Apart from giving birth, she provides everything that the child needs: nourishment, protection, warmth, comfort, education. It's practically everything that a child wants for its sustenance. The mother provides. It's a very natural and intimate and a very pure form of relationship. That is why perhaps Sri Ramakrishna said that to look upon God as mother, we can have several relationships with God. We have the Dasya Bhava, the attitude of a servant to his master. We can have Sakha Bhava, where one considers God to be one's friend. Then we have other Vatsalya Bhava, where God can be considered as a child, as Yashoda considered Gopala. But to look upon God as mother, one's own mother, and oneself as a child is the purest and the highest form of sadhana. This is what Sri Ramakrishna came to preach. That was one of the most significant aspects of the Ramakrishna incarnation. Now, coming to Taittiriya Aranyaka, where we have this famous Durga Suktam. Right from time immemorial, the Vedic sage pays praise to Durga, worships Durga in the following words. He says, I take refuge in her, the goddess Durga, who is fiery in her looks and radiant in her form, who is the power belonging to the Supreme, who manifests himself in manifold ways, who is the power residing in all our actions and their fruits, and she is the one who renders them efficacious, all these actions. O Goddess, you are the great Savior, you help us in our difficulties, our salutations to you. Similarly, we have in the Chandi, which is another famous text of Divine Mother's worship. In the Chandi, the goddess herself, Devi herself says, whenever there arises any obstacle from demons or evil forces, I shall incarnate in this way to destroy the enemies. Now, these obstacles can be gross, subtle, at the level of the mind, or even at the level of the causal body. There are various obstacles that human beings face. Although the Divine Mother is one, her manifestations are many. We can consider her as Durga, Kali. There are so many manifestations, Ambika, Amba, and so many names are there. The Divine Mother's various aspects have been described in the Indian devotional scripture. Now, although her manifestations are many, the The depiction of Durga, she is mostly pictured as riding a lion, Simha Vahini, that is one of her names. This is the image of Durga we find in the Chandi, where she appears as Chamundeshwari, that is one popular name of Durga, Ma Durga, and also Mahishasura Mardini. Mahishasura was killed by her. That is why she is also referred to as Mahishasura Mardini. Now, the word Durga has come from the Sanskrit word Durg, which means a fort, Durga. The different forts, they ended with Durg. So, the word Durga, literally, if you see the literal meaning, is one who protects one as a fort protects the king, or one who destroys. There is another meaning, Durgati Nashini. From that, the word Durga has come. One who destroys the evil consequences which human beings have to face of our actions. There may be some evil consequences which we have to face due to our inadvertence or intentional, and then we repent, and then we pray to Durga, who removes all the destroys the evil consequences through her grace, Durgati Nashini. In the Chandi, if you see, Durga is mostly referred to as simply as Devi, the goddess, and occasionally as Ambika. Obviously, the Chandi was composed before the sectarian divisions took place in Hinduism. That is Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktiism, Shakta tradition. All these things came much later, and Chandi was perhaps preceded uh, these sectarian divisions which took place in Hinduism. Hence, we find that Devi is referred to in this book as the power of Vishnu, and also addressed as Narayani, Narayani Shakti, Narayani Namostute. So we can safely assume that before these divisions took place, like worshippers of Shakti, worshippers of Vishnu, Vaishnavas, and all these things, because we find a wonderful synthesis in this book, Devi Mahatmya, or Chandi as it is known. The main purpose of Chandi, however, is to glorify Shakti. To put the sum and substance of Chandi is to glorify Shakti. Shakti is the dynamic aspect of Brahman, which is the ultimate reality according to Vedanta. The pure consciousness is apparently static, and the dynamic aspect of that Brahman is Shakti. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that Shakti is regarded as the feminine principle. Shiva Shakti Abhed used to say, because Shiva is the static aspect and Shakti is the dynamic aspect of the same reality. Now, this feminine aspect, Shakti aspect, has can be divided into two aspects. As we say, Avidya Maya and Vidya Maya, a lower and seductive aspect and a higher maternal aspect. So, the Vidya Maya takes you away from bondage, and Avidya Maya forces you to go into deeper and deeper bondage. So it is the higher maternal aspect, not the seductive aspect of the feminine principle, is what referred to here. It is this higher maternal aspect that is glorified in the Chandi and in the Shakta tradition in general. Sri Ramakrishna used to say in his Bengali, in his typical colloquial Bengali, Jini Brahma, Tini Shakti, Tini Ma. So his ideas were very clear. He who is Brahman is Shakti, the dynamic aspect of the static or the Brahman, which is pure consciousness, who cannot be active. But when the same Brahman becomes active, we call that same Brahman as Shakti. So we find the mother, a divine mother, or the creative capacity of the mother exhibits or shows itself that it has three main functions. First, Prakriti gives birth. That is one of the functions of the Divine Mother, to give birth, any mother for that matter. Then the second aspect is to nourish, to care, and the third one and the main function is to protect. So in Chandi, the third aspect is highlighted, the aspect of Durga as the protectress, one who protects one. The evil consequences that we have to face due to our actions, which put us in great danger, grave danger in our life. So, to protect is one of the functions. Mother gives birth to the child, also nourishes the child, and whenever the child is in difficulty, it protects. So, Chandi highlights this third aspect. And we find that she is not a static principle in creation, she is an active participant in this whole drama of creation. So, Mahamaya, whether it is Vidya Maya or Avidya Maya, she is an active participant and she creates dangers, and also to her votaries, she protects the people from dangers. Now, another purpose, Chandi has another purpose. There is so much of fighting people normally. Some people who do not like all these things, this war and killing and all those, they think, what kind of scripture is this? There's no peace or anything. There's full of killing and all those things. But there is a purpose behind it. The second purpose of Chandi is to depict the reality of evil in this world. Vice, wickedness, cruelty, injustice, and suffering. People sometimes feel that everything should be good, everything should be uh, love, compassion, cooperation, and all are the aspects of reality. It may be desirable, but it is not true. So we have dharma, but on the other side we have adharma. We have virtue, on the other side we have vice. All are two inseparable parts of reality, and we have to accept both. Normally, people tend to associate godhood. When you say God, we normally associate it with only love and compassion. That God is compassionate, God is full of love and He's kind and all those things. But if we consider reality in its totality, the reality in all its various aspects, we forget that Godhead or God has an aspect of power, terror, and destruction. We have the power to create, the power to sustain, and the power to destroy. So, in Vedanta believes, or Indian tradition believes in all these three powers. It was this destructive aspect of Godhead that we see in the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna shows Arjuna through his Vishwarup Darshana revelation. Which shows the terrible aspect where he is killing people, all these things, what is going to happen. He gives him a glance of the whole plan of the cosmos, where Godhead, the power, the terrible aspect of power, terror, destruction, destructive aspects of Godhood were also seen by Arjuna. So this Vishwarupa Darshana, we can safely say that Chandi also, we find the same terrible aspect which Arjuna saw and Krishna showed it to him. But in Chandi, it is associated not with Brahman or Vishnu, but with the eternal feminine aspect of the divine. That is why Devi exhibits her true nature, which can be destructive, which can be full of evil, wickedness, because it's also a part of reality, as much as kindness, compassion, and other things are. Now, Chandi has Chandi or the Devi Mahatmya, which is the main text uh, which is followed, which describes Durga and the secrets or maybe the inner essence of the Divine Mother's worship. The third message which Chandi gives us is the empowerment of women. The Chandi shows what true spiritual empowerment is, because we see historically in all countries In all times, women have been indoctrinated right from childhood to believe that they are weak, they are helpless, and are totally dependent on men. Even today, it is a male dominated society. No doubt, lot of effort has been done, efforts have been made to uh, fight for women's empowerment, but we see how difficult it is. So, Chandi, the girl child, as soon as she is born, she has been indoctrinated that she is weak, helpless, and somehow she has to depend on men. But Chandi is a text which shows how much power women can wield, how they can work independently and face boldly even the worst challenges of life without unduly depending on men. So that is another lesson we can learn from Chandi. And lastly, but not the least, Chandi or the Devi Mahatmya delivers a wonderful message of hope, the assurance of divine help, not only for women but for everybody. Women's empowerment is part of one of the messages of Chandi, but for everybody, man or woman, there is an assurance of divine help. There is someone who is protecting us. Let troubles come in our life, let difficulties come, let dire calamities occur in our life. But we have nothing to fear, for there is a God, a mother, especially a mother, who protects us from all dangers, or at least gives us the inner strength to face them. That is what is more important. No religion teaches you that there will be no dangers at all. There will be dangers, there will be struggles, there will be troubles, there will be difficulties, but we need the strength of the mother to give us that inner strength, that empowerment to give us the inner strength to face these difficulties. That is the least we can expect from the Divine Mother. In modern times, the Divine Mother, who is born as Sri Ma Sharda Devi, has given us this assurance. Her famous words are, always remember, whenever you are in trouble, that you have a mother. Place your burden upon me and remain unperturbed. That is the message given by all the incarnations. The Divine Mother, as a protectress, gives us the assurance that if you remember me, your remembrance will not be in vain, and I will come and protect you. This is also the main and the last message of the Chandi. So, Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, coming to the Ramakrishna movement, we can think of Holy Mother Sharda Devi as the Divine Mother Durga herself. But there is a difference. In this incarnation, she has come with a predominantly sattvic nature. It is her sattvic aspect, one who is constantly fighting all obstacles to the spiritual regeneration of mankind in this materialistic age. That is the main purpose of her incarnation. Not to kill demons or the evil forces, but try to fight obstacles which prove to be obstacles in this materialistic age where we have forgotten that we are the spirit. So, this life saving spiritual knowledge is something which the Divine Mother or the Holy Mother, who is an incarnation of the Divine Mother Durga, is trying to shower upon her children. So, a question may be asked, why did the martial deity Durga, the Divine Mother Durga, appear without her celestial weapons as this benign Mother Sharada? Swami Gambhirananda has tried to answer this question in his famous biography of the Holy Mother. He writes, and I quote, regarding the birth of the Holy Mother and the significance of her birth. The conflict, he writes, I am quoting his exact words, the conflict on the psychological plane in the modern age is even more devastating. We think only the gross troubles, the killing and the demons coming and trying to disturb you or harm you are the only troubles. They are not the only troubles. The conflicts that we face in our day-to-day life on the psychological plane are more devastating. It can ruin a person permanently. It can cause self-ruin. Nobody else has to do it. Our wrong thinking, our materialistic thinking can, uh, and our problems on the psychological planes are so complicated in this age. Above everything else, the present day world needs a lot of moral progress and spiritual enlightenment, which they lack. So, the incarnate divine power of Holy Mother is therefore engaged in fighting internal enemies like lust, greed, love for wealth, jealousy, fanaticism, and all these mental characteristics, evil characteristics of mind that has to be fought. And Holy Mother's life helps us and protects us from these things. We see that the Divine Mother, incarnated as the Divine Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, both the Divine Mother incarnated herself as two personalities, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna and also the Holy Mother for the good of humanity, as the male and female principle, female roles, to play the male and female roles. They are twin personalities intimately connected with each other. So that is why we find that even after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, she carried on the divine mission of on this earth for nearly more than 34 years after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna in 1886. So, in Sri Ramakrishna's life also we can see, like in Holy Mother's life, of course, there are so many aspects of her life which resemble that of the Divine Mother Durga. But Shardananji writes in his book, The Biography of Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, that on days auspicious to a particular deity, the characteristic of that deity would naturally become manifest in the person of Sri Ramakrishna. For example, if we were to worship Sri Krishna or sing a kirtan and be in the company of Vaishnavas, the characteristics of Krishna and the typical characteristics of the Ishta of the Vaishnavas would manifest in him. So also on Durga Puja days and the day when um, people worship the Divine Mother, on those days, the characteristics of the Divine Mother would manifest spontaneously in Sri Ramakrishna. Whenever he sat in Samadhi, motionless in Samadhi, sometimes his hands would assume the gestures of Kali spontaneously, not that he planned to do that, and offering a boon and protection against all fears. The famous pose in Samadhi, the mudras that you see, they are all different aspects of the gross aspects of the deity that he manifested in his life. So we see that on the occasion of Durga Puja, Sri Ramakrishna himself, as it were, became transformed into Durga and started blessing the devotees. Like Durga, like Mother Durga, he granted boons and showered his grace on devotees on Durga Puja. There are so many instances which you can find in the Great Master. And we, so many times when Mathur Babu was performing, for example, Durga Puja, he saw in a vision that Sri Ramakrishna was standing there when the puja and the arti, the vespers were going on. Even when Hriday performed the Durga Puja in Shihor and he wanted the master to come there, Sri Ramakrishna to come there, Sri Ramakrishna assured him that you come do the puja, I'll be there. And literally on the 6th and 7th and 8th days of the puja, during the Sandhi puja, Hriday could see Sri Ramakrishna being present there. So also in the life of Holy Mother, even prior to the birth of Holy Mother Sharda Devi, there was an incident, a very significant incident which took place, which shows her as the Divine Mother Durga incarnate. There is a saying, there is a belief that Durga dwells on the Bilva tree. That's why a lot of Shaktas, they perform sadhana under a Bilva tree, which is a symbol of the Sushumna canal, which Sushumna Nadi, which is the hollow canal between the Ida and the Pingala. And that is through the Sushumna, the path of Kundalini. The Sushumna canal is the path of the rise of Kundalini Shakti. So, once Shama Sundari Devi, the mother of Sri Ma Sharda Devi, was sitting in the dark besides a potter's oven under a bilwa tree in the village Shihor. She suddenly heard a jingling sound as if somebody has worn anklets on her tiny feet. And the jingling sound was coming from the direction of the oven. And suddenly she saw, to her surprise, a little girl came down from the branches of the tree, the bilwa tree, and she laid her hands around Shama Sundari's neck. And then this vision was so powerful that she fell down unconscious, and she did not know how long she was in that state. It must have taken a long time for her to come back to normal consciousness. Her relatives came, and on regaining consciousness, she felt that the small girl who descended from the tree, Bilwa tree, had entered. Somehow she felt that she had conceived, and the child had entered her womb. So this perhaps indicates that Sri Ma Sharda Devi is none other than Durga, who has descended from her Bilwa tree in Shihor. So many wonderful visions were there. Swamiji also looked upon Sri Ma Sharda Devi as the divine counterpart of Sri Ramakrishna, who was born for the awakening of womankind in the modern world. He firmly believed that one of the main roles of Sri Ramakrishna was to awaken Shakti in this world. So, in a letter to Swami Shivananda, written in, I think, 1894 from America, Swamiji had given expression to his conviction about the divinity of the Holy Mother as follows. Because he knew that the Guru Bhais were not, perhaps Holy Mother, the real significance of Holy Mother's birth and her role in the Ramakrishna movement in the scheme of the Sri Ramakrishna's divine Leela was practically unknown in those days. It is only after of course, Swamiji tried to convince his brother disciples and instill that faith in them. So he wrote to Swami Shivananda in 1894 from America and wrote, "Brother, I shall show how to worship the living Durga, the Jivanta Durga, and then only I shall be worthy of my name. If I can do that and show how the Divine Mother is to be worshipped in all womankind, then only I shall be worthy of my name. I shall be relieved when you have purchased a plot of land and established there the living Durga, the mother, Sri Ma Sharda Devi." So in 1901, we'll see Swami Vivekananda strangely saw a vision that Mother Durga was worshipped at Belur Math. A few days before Durga Puja in 1901, Swami Brahmananda had a similar vision when he was sitting on the bank of the Ganges. And he suddenly saw the 10-armed form of Durga walking on the surface of the Ganges towards the Belur Math monastery. A moment later, he saw Swamiji coming by boat from the other side. And he came to Brahmananda and suddenly exclaimed and suddenly told him, "Raja, make arrangements at once for the worship of the Mother Durga." Then they learnt of each other's vision of Durga which they had. Since then, Durga Puja, since 1901, Durga Puja is performed every year at Belur Math. So Swamiji had to hurry because only a few days were remaining. And the Holy Mother was present during this first celebration of Durga Puja in Belur Math, which was conducted strictly according to scriptural injunctions. And Holy Mother was very pleased with the way the puja was conducted and returned to her residence at Bagh Bazaar after blessing the monks who worked very hard to organize Durga Puja with all the paraphernalia and all the rituals which are very elaborate. So they did it, and Holy Mother was all praise for the young monks, brahmacharis, who did it in spite of the short notice. Now, another reason for organizing this Durga Puja in Belur Math was that Swamiji wanted to institutionalize respect for divinity of motherhood and sanctity of womanhood, which Sri Ramakrishna did by worshipping his own wife Sri Ma Sharda Devi as Shodashi. So that is a very significant act of divine act of Sri Ramakrishna, which had tremendous significance for the empowerment of women, the respect for the divinity of motherhood of God, and the sanctity of womanhood, which was missing. Swamiji saw that one of the main reasons for advancement of Western people, even in a material sense, was the elevation of women in the West, in a gross way, of course. And he believed that one of the main reasons why India is backward, because we neglected our women. So worship of the Divine Mother, especially the Kumari Puja, which is done on Ashtami, would create an awareness of potential divinity of women, and thus create a respectful attitude towards, help people to create a respectful attitude towards women. That was his intention of starting this Durga Puja and institutionalizing it. He wanted to institutionalize the worship of the Divine Mother in women. So, if we see the Kumari Puja, the philosophy behind it, worship of a young girl, treating her as Devi, a very small girl, is also part of Durga Puja on the Ashtami day. And it's a very big event in Belur Math. Sri Ramakrishna said that the Divine Mother manifests herself more in a pure-hearted girl. When the girl is still pure, that is why Kumari Puja is done, and Kumaris are worshipped, small girls are worshipped, because they are still pure. The pure-hearted girl manifests that divine motherhood, or the divinity, the feminine divinity to the fullest extent. So he used to bow down, Sri Ramakrishna himself used to bow down when he saw little girls, looking them as manifestations of the divine mother. So when Durga Puja was done at Belur Math for the first time, Swami Vivekananda, it seems, worshipped several Kumaris. Many Kumaris were worshipped, but now only one Kumari is worshipped. Some small girl is selected. She has to patiently sit and accept the elaborate puja which is done. All the rituals and paraphernalia which are used to worship the Durga, image of Durga, are done, and Kumari, the small girl, receives the puja and the worship. Even senior monks, they offer flowers at her feet. It's not just the pujari who does the puja, but after the puja is over, Pushpanjali, just as we offer flowers at the feet of the mother, everybody comes and offer. The senior monks of the order, very venerable monks of the order, come and offer the flowers at her feet. So the next time Sri Ma Sharda Devi attended the Durga Puja at Belur Math was, the second time was in October 1912. Of course, Swami Vivekananda had entered into Mahasamadhi in 1902. So it was 10 years after that, after she came and attended the first Durga Puja, uh, as if she were herself the living Durga. She came and accepted the worship. But the second Durga Puja was very significant, which took place in October 1912. It is said that the ceremonial awakening of the Divine Mother in the image, the clay image which is made, it takes place on the 6th lunar day. So on that day, when the Bodhan, or the ceremonial awakening, had just taken place, exactly at that time, Holy Mother entered the gates of Belur Math. The monks and devotees just coming to know about this, Swami Premananda himself, with all the monks and devotees, ran to welcome her and unharnessed the horses of the carriage which brought her to Belur Math, and drew the carriage themselves. They were so enthusiastic. thinking that the living divine mother has come, the Holy Mother has come. And the mother also looked around and saw the wonderful arrangements because she was coming after almost 11 years. And she even made a remark which was like a revelation that she is the divine mother Durga herself. She says, so everything is so nice, tip top, so nicely arranged. It is though as if we ourselves have come attired in the guise of goddess Durga. So inadvertently she spoke about this, and uh, this is a kind of self-revelation she made about herself. And she had special love and regard for Belur Math. The monks themselves considered that Belur Math came into existence not by the efforts of Swami Vivekananda alone, but because of the prayers of the mother who prayed when she saw the huge monasteries at Bodh Gaya, the Buddhist monasteries, and she prayed to the master and said, "My boys are wandering here and there like vagabonds. Please see that they come and stay together in the monasteries. These people have such wonderful monasteries." The Buddhist monasteries were very, very big, and they are still big in Bodh Gaya. So Holy Mother was very much impressed and felt that the direct disciples also should be uh, should also get a monastery like this. And because of her prayers, Belur Math was finally possible. They could get the land for Belur Math in mysterious ways, and also get money to build the temple and the other buildings which form part of the monastery. So, and these disciples also, the monks knew that the Divine Mother had taken the human form of Sharda Devi. So they could not consider the puja which they did, ritualistic puja, as successful unless the Divine Mother in the form of Sri Ma Sharda Devi came to the monastery and accepted their adoration personally. And if she was satisfied, they thought, the monks felt that our Durga Puja has really been successful. At the beginning of the Durga Puja, right from the first year, Sri Ma Sharda Devi's name was ceremonially announced by the priest as the beneficiary, as the Yajamana, as they call it in Sanskrit. So there should be a beneficiary for the celebrations, for the puja. And even to this day, the beneficiary of all the pujas, all the Durga pujas performed anywhere, including that of Belur Math, that custom is followed. Sri Ma Sharda Devi's name, the puja is done in her name, as she is the Yajman of all the Durga puja. So, when the Holy Mother came during the second Durga Puja, when Premanandji and all were there, the monks offered handfuls of flowers as they did Pushpanjali before the deity, before the image of the Ma Durga. They did not consider their worship as complete, without making an offering to the living Durga, that was Holy Mother. And during the celebration, they kept their eyes fixed on her face just to see if she smiled, if she gave a smile of approval. They thought that the worship, the Divine Mother, Goddess Durga herself had accepted the worship. So there's another incident where Swami Brahmananda, just like Sri Rama, worshipped the feet of the Holy Mother Sharda Devi, as living Durga with a 108 fully blown lotuses on the second day of the Durga Puja. If you remember, Sri Rama also worshipped before attacking Lanka. He sought the blessings of Divine Mother Durga near Rameshwara, and he offered 108 blue lotuses. When he found that there was 107 only, one was missing, then he decided to complete his worship. He decided to pluck out his own eye to complete the worship. And Mother Durga was pleased by this devotion of Sri Rama and blessed her profusely that he will win the war. Now, the third Durga Puja was attended by Holy Mother on October 1916, 4 years after the second puja. Regarding this event which took place, Swami Shivananda writes beautifully that owing to the presence of the Blessed Holy Mother, it has altogether been a direct worship and not merely the worship of goddess in a image merely. And something strange happened. There was continuous rain and storm on all the 3 days. But because of the grace of the Holy Mother, the no part of the celebration suffered. Somehow the rain went away when the key events took place, especially when the devotees sat for taking prasad. All were surprised to know that whenever they sat for prasad, somehow the clouds cleared and there was no rain. Then Yoginma said, "You do not know, mother is to sit down and do japa of Durga's name." And she used to pray to Durga just before uh, the prasad was offered to the devotee. She said, "Dear me, the sun is cloudy. How can so many people sit and eat in the rain if it rains? The leaf plates, everything will be washed away and they will suffer. Oh Mother Durga, please save us." And immediately, invariably, on all the 3 days, the prayer was answered. And when the Sandhi Puja was over, Swami Shardananda was so much relieved and so ecstatic that he said to the brahmachari, normally a gold coin is offered to the image of Divine Mother Durga. So he just took a coin which was meant for Durga and said, "Go and offer it to the mother." Now the brahmachari did not understand who was the mother Swami Sharadananda was referring to, because even goddess Durga is known as the mother. So he thought perhaps the coin is to be offered to the Divine Mother Durga as a ritual. But still he had some doubt, so he asked the Swami whom he should offer this coin. He said, "Don't you know Holy Mother Sharda Devi is in that garden? Go and offer the coin at her feet and salute her. It is she who is worshipped here. The image may be there, but she is the living Durga." So we see right from birth, Holy Mother came as that little girl from the top of the Bilwa tree, which symbolizes the uh, Kundalini, the rise of Kundalini in the Sushumna. So, Bilwa tree, the trunk of the Bilwa tree is compared to the spinal column or the hollow in the spine, which is the Sushumna Nadi. On both sides are the Ida and Pingala, and in between is the Sushumna Nadi. So, there is definitely the significance of Holy Mother's presence as a small girl even before her birth shows that she was none other than Durga herself. And it is no wonder that she manifested herself as the very image of Durga even at the time of her samadhi. Not only she was born, before she was born, she manifested the divine power of Durga, but also throughout her life, she was literally worshipped as Mother Durga by so many devotees and disciples. But even her passing away was so memorial, and we shall conclude by describing what Swami Tapasyanji has written in his wonderful biography of Holy Mother. He writes, just before her passing away, her face and body had become dark and shriveled because naturally she was very, very sick, and the skin had become dark and dry and shriveled because of old age. But to the astonishment of all, a great change took place after she entered Mahasamadhi. The shriveled form was found to relax, and her face swelled up and assumed a radiant hue. Her countenance seemed to resemble the face of the image of goddess Durga, the yellowish hue, worship mellow and golden in color, which is the expression of calmness and serenity which was written on her face. So it is a golden color, the mellow golden color is the expression of divinity, of calmness, and that radiant golden color was seen on the face of the Holy Mother towards the end of her life after she passed away into Mahasamadhi. And they say this expression, this golden, wonderful, radiant golden expression on her face lingered on her face for a very, very long time. So I shall conclude now. I am grateful to Swami Swatma Ramananji for mm, giving me an opportunity to share a few thoughts about Durga Puja, about the significance of Durga Puja and its significance, especially in the Ramakrishna movement. From that perspective, I could get this. I'm thankful for the opportunity to share a few thoughts, and I convey my uh, I offer my humble salutations at the feet of the Divine Mother and also Sri Ma Sharda Devi, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda for empowering all of us spiritually on this auspicious occasion of Navaratri or Durga Puja. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.